Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon live from London. This is another Persia webinar, this time focused on the issue of sustainability in fashion. And we're delighted to welcome three dynamic women who are changing the world of fashion in many ways. Our panelists this afternoon will be speaking about a pioneering form that they are using to create luxury accessories. And the panel is moderated by another dynamic woman who has been trying to redefine the space of fashion in a way that is of meaningful contribution and change in our world today. So I'm going to now hand it over to Raha Dixon, who is our moderator that I've been speaking about, and she will introduce our panelists. So thank you once again for joining this month's webinar offered by Persia. All questions are welcome in writing through our social media, and for those who are present in the webinar, of course, through our chat. So Raha, over to you.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm really not the one changing the world of fashion, but I'm going to be talking to two of the people doing that. I think it's so wonderful to be here. I would like to acknowledge you, Tahira, for what you're doing and the emphasis that you're placing on education and giving access to people to that who don't normally have, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. Education is everything. It really is. Without it, we're all doomed. And I can't wait to get into this conversation. We have two incredible guests here with us today. We have first the mastermind of a trailblazing product that is created in a sustainable way to replace, in this circumstance for our other guest, leather goods. And I think it's wonderful to open up the conversation, especially because there's oftentimes taboo around, oh, is that fake leather, or that's not real, or, you know, we have all these attachment to these ideas and these stories, and that's all they are. They're just stories. So I'm excited to get to the truth today. And one of the people helping us get there is Dr. Carmen, who is the inventor of, is it Pinatex? Is that how I pronounce it?
Absolutely.
Sorry?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Really a trailblazing product. And then our other guest, Amanda Navai, who has taken this product and turned it into a luxury bag line. But it's not just a luxury bag, it's a story, and it's a moment, and it's something that, you know, inspires women to be the best version of themselves. I think that's what I saw plastered all over the website, is that we are all light, and let's show up that way. And I love that your brand was introduced and born on Earth Day in 2020, a time when everyone questioned where on the face of this planet is this Earth going. And you were like, I have an idea. And I think that was really beautiful that you chose that. So these are our two guests. I would like to invite you both to maybe introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your story. So Dr. Carmen, starting with you, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. It really is great to be here. I think, you know, anything to do with education, as you were saying, is absolutely critical, Raha. It's vital that whatever we do, we can really stretch ourselves towards the new generations, that they really are going to have a difficult time, and whatever we can do to share, to inspire is very, very important. So thank you, really. So my name is Carmen Hijosa. I come from Spain. I left quite young and I went to Ireland. I was just late teens. And I say I'm possibly a social entrepreneur because I started my first company at about 2021, and that was manufacturing products with leather. In fact, luxury products made with leather, and it did do very well. We were selling in places like Harrods and Liberty and, exporting all over the world. But then, as sometimes history has, or your own karma or destiny, I started to do consultancy work. So from this kind of luxury platform, using really very good leathers, I started to work in places like South America, Asia, and some places like Bolivia, the Altiplano, the second highest plateau in the world, with indigenous communities, realizing that the normal world is not about luxury leather, but it's maybe about survival, right? And that brought me extremely close to people, realizing I'm not here to do a really great report for the World Bank, etc. I'm here to help people. That was really a breakthrough in my mind, in a way, a real direct experience. And then I was asked to go to the Philippines. So my journey, my internal journey of discovering the world from another dimension, it was already moving, right? And there I thought, hang on for a minute. Now it's not just about people, it's about materials. Where do they come from? What is the responsibility? And now I'm talking about the 90s, so sustainability wasn't even an issue at the time. And then I thought, I have to understand the material that they asked me to work with, right? Because that's what I went to the Philippines as a consultant. And obviously I went to tanneries and I thought, wow, the toxicity, the really negative impact is so real dramatic, all the chemicals, the amount of water, looking at people's faces even. So I decided there and then not to work with leather anymore. So that was another big threshold in my life. I decided I didn't have a plan B. It took me 12 years to really develop the product. But in my heart and in my mind, it was really, the decision was made. And I think this is the way we have to work more and more today. We have to decide based on ethics, humanity, empathy, environmental issues, and then really move on. And I think that somehow the universe helps you to get into something if you decide that something is really, outside yourself in a way and good for others and obviously our planet. And this is how Piñatex was born. I started to work with farmers, I started to work with weavers, researchers, trying to understand all this wealth of natural fibers that they exist in the Philippines. And then I got to the pineapple leaf fiber. I will find a little bit later on. Which is very, very fine, but very strong and flexible, used traditionally to make very beautiful traditional textiles. And I thought, what if I make a mesh not unlike our skin and leather is with these fibers? So this is about thinking creatively as well. What if, right? And this is how creation starts. And as I said, after 12 years of intense research and development, I went to London, I did this PhD, I set up my company, but Piñatex was born out of, I think, this close community connection with the land and the people, that they are really surrounded by the land, and understanding that I had a responsibility to change something that was, basically I was confronted with this. And it's as simple as that.
This is phenomenal, because in the 90s, I don't know that many people were thinking along these lines. The 90s was excess and decadence and just whatever you could afford, do it and go for it. And I think it's phenomenal that your heart was really your mind's advisor. And it makes me feel like we should listen to that voice inside our hearts more often, because that's what I heard you say, is that I was using my mind, but I was being advised by my heart. And it was telling me, what if, what if? And most people think, what if, and it's something horrible. And you thought, what if, what if? That's a great example, to let every what if that we say be a what if that suits our fantasy. Why can't it be that? What if I make something amazing? What if I make something trailblazing? What if there's something really incredible? And that's what you did, which is amazing. And got the attention of Amanda, who I would like to hear from now. And you're welcome to build on that. Tell us who you are, how you got here. Sorry, that's my dog. Let me let him out for a second. Hold on. I apologize. That should not have happened. Okay.
No.
I do love my dog. But okay. So Amanda, please tell us a little bit about you and then how your path crossed with Carmen and how we're here today.
Great. Okay, I'll take it back a little bit before my path crossed with Carmen.
Yeah.
So I'm Iranian, like yourself. I'm brought up in Sweden, and I just remember being a child and always, going back home and feeling that people in Iran or generally in the Middle East, they had this notion that they didn't really respect as much homegrown brands, just like how they did in Sweden. In Sweden, anything that was made in Sweden, people would value it so much more, really find it precious. Whereas I would go to Iran, people would be like, oh, where is it from? Is it foreign? Is it from here or there? And they would get so much more excited about anything that was imported as opposed to locally made, even though I felt people were very creative and there was just so much craft, and anyone, people would be knitting and sewing and choosing their own materials. And before there were stores like there are today, everybody would go and tailor their own clothing. So in a way, everybody was in a bit of a creative mode, choosing their own fabrics, doing dresses. So it was really exciting. And they actually didn't realize that they were doing something that was extremely creative, because that was not going on in Sweden, for example. And then later on, I studied international relations. I wanted to study fashion. But obviously, my generation, that was a bit of a no-go from an Iranian family. So I studied politics and international relations. I was very much always concerned about social issues. After graduating, I went to Dubai and I started working with an affiliate of LVMH, going back to my passion. That was very about fashion. So I started not launching niche brands there. And so learning a lot about PR, marketing, I started visiting factories and seeing really what happens in the back end. And after a few years, I thought, I want to start a local brand and I want to create a local success story, because I really want to start a local movement, because I feel that's ultimately the most sustainable thing we can do, support local people, local craft, local economy. So I started a brand. That was my first handbag brand, and I was using all sorts of different types of leather. The brand did quite well. It was very exciting. And, after a few years, there was so many up and coming brands. I was very lucky. And so that started a bit of a movement. After, I think it was 4 years ago, so I owe it all to my father, who actually, I think my mom and father are here watching, so that's very exciting. My dad was at the Danish Sustainability Summit, where he came across Dr. Carmen Hijosa. And so he told me, he just sent me an email and said, I just came across this. Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Hi, Dad. Okay, Dad, did you mute the?
Yes. So, okay. So basically, can we hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
My dad would have done the very same thing.
Okay, so basically, my dad was like, there's this new invention and this phenomenal lady is turning pineapple plants into a leather alternative. So he's a chemical engineer. So that was very interesting to him. And I was like, okay. And then lo and behold, I went and I started researching Dr. Carmen. And I was like, this is absolutely phenomenal. Just reading about her story, reading about her perseverance, her resilience. And I thought it was so fascinating that this was a female invention. And first I was fascinated, by her story and her invention and how long it took. And so I think us females, we always have this worry about age. So the fact that she started in her mid 50s and then in her mid 60s, she's now, embarked on this new phenomenal career. It's almost like rebirth and a new journey. I was very impressed and I thought this is a great story. But then I saw the actual material, which I was completely impressed by, and I thought, this could look like anything else. And it reminded me of, Fendi leather that I'd seen, Balenciaga distressed leather. So then I fell in love with the material and I fell in love with her story. And here we are.
I think that's so fascinating. I love what you said about we always put down what we have and we think, oh, something foreign is better. And I love that you turn that on its head, because that's, to someone else, we're foreign. Everyone's foreign to somebody, right? So why not? And why not come up with something incredible? And I also love that you felt that you had to go into a different path because socially it wasn't acceptable to be in fashion. I think that's something a lot of people, I'm Persian, I had the same thing. I couldn't just be creative. I had to have a law degree and then be creative. Although I will say my law degree has helped me a lot. And for you, probably also the education you got is probably such a pillar for what you're doing today. But you end up doing what you're meant to be doing. And that pull is so strong that I'm so happy that you found your feet in this incredible product that you've created. I mean, I have a billion questions. I don't even know where to start. But I guess, first of all, Amanda, you had mentioned that you were impressed with the product, actually touching it. Because I think when people think of a product that's not actual leather, they think, it's kind of plasticky. It's never going to look right. After a while, it's going to peel off and it's going to look fake. So were you concerned about that at all? And how have you come to not be?
Well, I'm in fashion, so I think for me, things need to be aesthetically pleasing. That's very important. And I think until now, the other alternatives that I had seen, especially with synthetic leather, that was another alternative. I always felt that it wasn't looking very luxurious. Yeah. And with Dr. Carmen's invention, I feel it looks really luxurious. So what we're trying to do is to combine luxury artisanal craftsmanship of the past that's also kind of being removed from the equation with all these industrialized processes, together with the regenerative material of the future. And so to kind of combine that all in one, I think it's all in the work, in the making it as durable as possible. From our side, we're offering a lifetime warranty because following a circular design economy mindset, we really want to take control of our outputs. So at the end of life of this product, we're very much happy to take it back and give people a gift note for them to pick something else and create a community and a relationship. So from my point of view, I was very impressed by the aesthetics. And I have to say, if I didn't like the aesthetics, I would have perhaps not gone for it, even though I would have loved the story, because I think those two things must come together.
Oh, I like that. Dr. Carmen, see, I said Dr. Carmen, it's like it's sensual because I think what you've done is so incredible. Can you tell us, in terms of, we hear the word sustainable all the time, but what does it really mean for a product to be sustainable?
Yes, and I think today I don't like to say sustainable anymore in a way, and I tell you why. What are we sustaining, right? Are we sustaining a system, a process that is already there? Yes, we are. Does that mean that it's a good system? Maybe it isn't. So to me, I think today we have to talk about regenerative systems, which is really the next step of sustainability. And what does that really mean? It means that when you develop a product, even an idea, because everything starts with an idea, you have to think of what is the impact full positive impact that this product, idea, system, processes has in the whole area where it comes from, right? We're talking about the people around the product. Usually it's a product. We're talking about a product. What is the impact socially, culturally? What is the impact on the land? What is really the impact on the full generation of people? So I think for a product to be regenerative, so we stop talking about sustainability, we talk about regenerative product, it really needs to encompass the whole supply chain. And I will show you some of the supply chain life cycle that I have in slides in here to share the idea. Okay. It has to really encompass the full responsibility from beginning to end. And I think Amanda, extremely brave and extremely holistic again, to really say she's taking responsibility, right, for the product farther than what she's doing, which is an extraordinary thing to do. And that's why I really think that, this holistic way, this regenerative way of doing things, she's taking a responsibility. We take another responsibility, which is the land, the people, how much water you use, how much chemicals, we don't have anything like that, but again, I'll show that later. And I think this is what regenerative or sustainable practices mean. You really take care of the whole supply chain in a circular manner, which I think is the way we have to go.
That is really beautiful. And I think it lends itself to the idea that the virtue behind, or the thought behind what's happening in every stage, is just as important as what is actually happening. And I think sometimes we forget that. So tell us, you said you had some slides you wanted to show to show.
I'll be happy to, if you want to, really, because sometimes a vision of what it is, it can really help a lot. So if everybody's happy, I can actually do that.
And for anyone who just joined, we are talking to Dr. Carmen, who has created a product that is trailblazing in the sense that it's not from any animal, it's plant-based, and has been used as a leather for leather goods created by Amanda Navai. So please go on, Dr. Carmen.
I think let me just see. Can you allow me to share?
Yes, I believe.
Yes, you're able to do that.
Can I do it now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay.
Oh, your desktop looks like mine.
Sorry?
I said your desktop looks like mine, full of files.
Let's hide it. Let's hide it. Yeah.
No,
okay, I'm going to do this now. I don't see anybody, but at least I think you see. Everybody can see it?
Yes, we can see.
Lovely. So welcome to Ananas Anam, which is really the company behind the product we have been speaking about. And ananas actually is a Persian word. It's a word in many countries. I think probably nearly except English. And I like to say what Anam means. I lived in Ireland longer than any other place in the world. And Anam is a Gaelic Irish word for caring. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's this embracing, caring gesture. So ananas, Anam means really caring for. And ananas, which is pineapple, it's really a bit the representation of the planet. I thought about this. How can I join the caring with the word? And Ananas Anam to me is pretty good. So welcome to Ananas Anam. Sorry, it's down here. So I think for anybody thinking on fashion, Amanda spoke a little bit about what it is to start something in fashion. I would like to say that anything that we start today and forever, I think the vision of the company, the movement, the impulse, whatever we want to call it, is absolutely critical, and obviously the purpose as well. And I wrote the vision and the purpose a good few years ago when I started to work with these fibers. And you can see this is one of our ladies in Mindanao, the southern part of the Philippines, and you can see the leaves, which are really the left behind after the pineapple harvest. That's really where we get our raw material, the fibers. But going back to the vision, it is really to meet the challenges of our times by developing products in which commercial success is integrated with and promotes social, cultural, and ecological development. And I think that this is as important when I wrote it already 12, 15 years ago as it is today. And the purpose is to reconnect and heal the relationship between people and planet. And we can talk about that later if we want to. But again, to me, this is today even more important. We need to connect back with nature. We need to connect back with our own humanity to feel the people's humanity. And this is how we can have empathy for people like this wonderful lady and feel how I feel, right? I'm working
It's fascinating to me that you were thinking about this in the 90s, honestly. I don't remember seeing this anywhere.
Oh, right. But, well, you can see how important. So this is the core of Ananas and so Piñatex is the product. We spoke a little bit about it. It comes from the leaves of the pineapple harvest, which is really the waste of the pineapple agriculture. And before that, those leaves were left to rot in the ground. They were burned, and there's a lot of them. It's 27 million tons of waste throughout the world. Hypothetically, they could become Piñatex. So really, it is developing a product which is patented, of course, just to protect it, based on the values of circular economy. And as people like Amanda can really say, that is breaking barriers in the fashion and the textile industry. Let me go back there. And this is really the DNA of Piñatex. It's 100% vegan, so as we were saying, there is no animal products whatsoever. Obviously cruelty-free, is carbon neutral as well, and there is no harmful chemicals whatsoever. Also, it's made from 95% renewable resources, and this is basically, I quite like this little thing because it really shows that we're getting closer to 100%, but nevertheless, it has to perform. So slowly, with ongoing research and development, this is where we are today. When I started, it was really, I had about 30% non-renewable resources, which means petroleum-based resources, so we're getting better all the time. So this is really what it is about. And this is the life cycle that I was talking about, and circular economy, which is really the only way we can develop things. You know, this system of, you know, extracting, using, and basically wasting, it's not possible. I mean, our world is already on negative, based on natural resources. So we have to really think of what can we use and what are the materials. So the fact that we use a waste material is already pretty good, but nevertheless, we gather the leaves, then they are collected, and this goes into the cooperatives. In the cooperatives, we work really strong collaboration with them. We develop particular machines which are called decorticated machines to extract the fibers, as we can see here. But then when we extract the fibers, a leaf is a little bit much flatter, if somebody hasn't seen it, than an aloe vera, but it's that kind of idea, right? There's a lot of biomass. In fact, more than 95% is biomass. And this biomass is converted into organic fertilizer, and eventually and very soon will be also biogas, because we need the big volume as we upscale. And the fertilizer, the chemical fertilizer, is the most expensive and the most damaging thing they can have in agriculture. So this is, to me, this is a very beautiful graph of what it really means to be closing the loop, particularly in agriculture, which is, as we probably can imagine, some of the poorest people in this, you know, if you like, the subtropics for this kind of fibers are farmers, basically. So this is really important. Yeah.
Question. So the outer loop is the loop to creating going from the agriculture to the product, which in this case for Amanda is the luxury leather good. And then the inner circle is what you do with your waste from the product. Is that right?
Absolutely right. So the waste of the waste becomes biomass, becomes fertilizer. It will become also biogas eventually, because we're working on it already. So you can see that there is really two revenue streams from a waste. And this really is important in a place where there was no real industry for that. So this is a new industry as well, which is wonderful.
And so
then,
this means people have jobs in areas where they would normally not. Is that right?
Absolutely, particularly women, because I mean, there's very little things to do there, and the women can go into the fields. It's not really hard work, and they love it because it's a very strong community. And yeah, they have a job, they can really feed their children, and they have a job which is all year around. They could get little jobs here and there, and as they were saying to me, this gives us the security to really bring the kids to school, buy shoes, but most important, they are paid every day. Otherwise, they don't have enough money to eat. So when you work this way, you get so close to people, you get so responsible that you are driven.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that was, I mean, there were obviously moments in time when you had setbacks, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But
I'd love to know how you got past that, because a lot of us, we want to do something and it's exciting. And then there's a setback, and then there's another setback. And it sounds like this is one of the things that drove you, but I would love to know how you got past those.
Yes, well, if we just finish the life cycle, then the fibers will go into a purification stage, and we use enzymes, meaning that there's no damaging chemicals either. And from that, we make a non-woven mesh, and this is part of the invention as well, and the upscaling, which is actually not unlike a felt, right? And then this, because in the Philippines, we're in the process of developing the full supply chain, but we haven't still got the technology to do the coating and finishing. So we bring it to Spain, where I just moved to be close to a factory, and we do the coating and the finishing here, and then people like Amanda get the product. But obviously we're still working on closing the loop as well. And then the recycling, upcycling, quite similar to what Amanda said. How can we actually do something with the waste? The waste is, once you use it, I mean, it can be shredded, make into another product, but also we are working on having a degraded, in controlled degradation. So this is really my pride and glory, supply chain and life cycle of the product.
Woohoo, look at that.
And then this is beautiful products from Amanda. This is one of them. So you can see the versatility and how it can become a luxury product. But luxury here means that it's got a status, it's got a background which is transparent and is ethical and is humane and also beautifully made, very, very good shapes as well. And this is really what makes it, to me, the new luxury. So Piñatex can be used for making bags, all kinds, also shoes, sandals. We have people like Nike working with it. So it goes from, very specialized companies, a lot of vegan companies, to top marks like brands like Hugo Boss, H&M, Nike, etc. This is a prototype, and I show you this because I do a lot of work with universities doing master classes, even programs to develop the awareness of using sustainable materials. And this was done by a university here in Barcelona called Elisava, which is actually very focused on material development. And this was one of their prototypes with, we gave them the material, we gave them a brief, and they developed this. But again, this is using creativity and imagination using the product. So I'm very happy to share that this is a prototype from students.
That's so beautiful.
And then it can be also used in interiors, and the panels there that are made with Piñatex, printed Piñatex in a particular way, also in the car industry. So it is quite versatile, and the R&D doesn't stop. So this is quite a good thing. And I'd like to leave you with something that I wrote again a long time ago when I went to the Philippines first, in this realization that design is not just about product, it's about responsibility. And I think, you listen to Amanda, the responsibility to do the work based on her background, her experience. But I think anybody considering designing, manufacturing, going to fashion, to me, this is absolutely critical, that we take on this responsibility personally. So it's not about product, it's about responsibility. So I'm going to stop sharing.
It was amazing. Thank you so much.
So at least
it really helps to have a visual of that cycle. Was very, very helpful. Amanda, what does this inspire in you? Which part of this would you like to comment on? Because you were drawn to this to create what you created. Oh, you're muted, I think.
There we go. No, to be honest, I'm inspired by all of it. You know, the invention and the whole thought process and you know, everything that Dr. Carmen is aspiring to do, especially closing the loop. I think that's very important because it's like, this is what we put out there and then we're ready to take it back and, you know, reuse it. For us as a brand, I think it's taking these materials and creating luxury products that people really value and respect, because to me, one of the biggest problems of today is this linear world of like use, throw away, and people are not really valuing things. As such, we're creating our handbags at the same factory as Bottega Veneta and Louis Vuitton. We number each product. They're very precious. They're all limited edition, and everything has been done by hand. So in our philosophy, we're putting, you know, people and the planet before profit. And I think that's what Dr. Carmen adheres to as well. And I think there's something to said about that energy of that there's only 3 people that have touched our handbags and all the thought process that's gone into it, because, you know, usually you can have manufacturing done between 10 different countries, so many different locations. And that's really what we want to create, something that people value and want to hold on to, I think is very, very important.
I think the idea of creating is people think of that also as a luxury. How would you speak to one of the people in our community has asked, how would I start something like this in Iran with little means? And I would love your answer to that, because I think some people think, well, yeah, it's easy to start a company with lots of money, and I know you've spoken about the fact that you didn't do that. You didn't start with lots of money.
No, I didn't. Actually, you know, one of the things that I try to do is to instill hope in other people to think that they can do it too. And in fact, I was inspired by another Persian lady to start my first business. Sahar Hashemi was the founder of the Coffee Republic chains, and she had written a book called Anyone Can Do It. And that really struck a notion with me, because that's so beautiful. And so I set out to start my first company with $5,000, which I know for some people that also might be a lot of money, but in the grander scheme, that's very little money to start a new company. And I grew that organically. So with the 5,000, I created 13 handbags. I sold those 13 handbags, and I made 25 handbags, and then I sold those and I made 50. So it was very much just organic growth. And I was very lucky to know how to manage PR, marketing. So I knew how to do a lot of things myself and didn't need to outsource. But honestly, my advice to people would be to start small, start with friends and family, and, you know, sell the little that you make, and then keep on continuing and double that. And I don't think it's about competing with other people and competing with big companies. It's about competing with yourself. So if I sold, you know, 5 bags in a month, and then the next month I sold 10, and then I sell 15, that's a personal growth that I should have gratitude in and be proud over. So I think it's having a more content mindset and starting small. I know it can be difficult, but, you know, anyone's free to shoot me an email, and if I can help, I will. And, you know, we're using something called the collective, which means very much that I reach out to people that I respect and I admire, and I tell them, look, I'm trying to do this. If you'd like to be a part of this and contribute with your know-how, you can take a small piece of my company and let's grow together and let's create a collective, because sometimes I want to hire the best people that there is, but I can't afford them. So this is a bit of a different way of saying, you know, let's have a smaller piece of the pie, but let's create a bigger pie and let's do it together.
Yeah, that's really Really beautiful for so many reasons. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about is you said, don't ever compare yourself to others. Compare yourself only to yourself. And we're living in a world where everyone is comparing everything. I mean, just the very notion of social media and how people present themselves, it's like we're being trained to compare ourselves to others. So how do you prevent yourself from doing that, especially in a tough, sometimes unkind business of fashion?
Look, I don't know if I have the answer to that. Unfortunately, Instagram, social media, it has the positives and it has the negatives. It's connecting so many people, but at the same time, it's creating a lot of anxiety amongst a lot of people because you keep on comparing yourself. But I would just try to limit the time I spend on social media, and perhaps not start your mornings with social media, and kind of try to manage it that way. But, to be honest, I struggle with it myself on a daily basis as well. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have an answer or that I don't do so. It's just the way it is. But I think I just try to focus on that. I compare myself to where I was yesterday, where I am today, and to look forward and, take small steps towards my goals.
I really appreciate your honesty. And I think the viewers do too, that there's struggle, there's daily struggle in those little decisions. Dr. Carmen, you kept nodding and smiling. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it's absolutely difficult. Not for me, possibly because I'm older and I don't really follow too much, because I already have enough problems keeping up with emails and WhatsApps and LinkedIn. So that's as much as I go, just as far as that. So that's as far as one goes. But I think Amanda is right. It's got the positive side. I was yesterday at the European Patent Office, which was I was one of the jury members there for the world finalist. And we had a kind of interview a little bit like this with two influencers, one from Norway, a beautiful young man, and the other one actually from Spain. But they are there to make sure that in this particular case, which is really to bring innovation, creativity to young people, for the first time we had these Young Inventors Awards, and there you have people from 22 inventing a way of recognizing Parkinson even before the clinical trials, something extraordinary. But these people are using social media all the time, so there is the good and the bad thing. And how do you start, things like think about Greta Thunberg, right? I mean, we need this, but again, it can be toxic. It can be really that it damages your self-esteem. It's a very difficult one, but I'm kind of a little bit beyond the toxicity because I'm older, so it doesn't affect me as much. But I think it's a difficult one to handle, and I think Amanda is totally right.
But I would, if I may, I'd love to add something positive, to end this on a positive note about social media. In fact, and talking about budgets, when I first started, and I just moved to London, I've just moved to London 3 years ago in August, in fact. So I was, talking with consultants, and I say, I want to get into Selfridges, and I want to be a part of Project Earth, and I want to start from the top and trickle down, and not the other way around. And they told me that's going to take years. You need 5 years to get into Selfridges, and you should get this idea out of your head, and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay. But I was like, I'm not going to listen to them. So in fact, I found this lovely gentleman called Sebastian Maines, who is the merchandising director of Selfridges on Instagram. And I messaged him and he said, look, this is what we're doing. We have a brand called Marici. We're championing the plant-based. And I remember this was during Corona. And he's like, that's wonderful. It's amazing. And I'm going to put you in touch with our buyer. So that's also a story how I kind of, didn't go to those Paris fashion show that cost an arm and a leg, and I just messaged this person on Instagram, and we start following each other, and this is how I got into Selfridges.
Again, Amanda, I love your honesty. Truly, I think it's so inspiring, and it's so helpful for everyone to hear these sort of honest answers where you're like, look, it's a struggle, and there's good and there's bad, but this is how I actually got to him. And it wasn't that I knew someone who knew someone. It was actually, I just went through Instagram. And I think that's really beautiful that you're so open and honest about your story. One thing I wanted to ask you is about the craftsmanship. I read on your website also, and you briefly mentioned it before, that there's something to do with keeping the art of this craftsmanship alive. I want you to talk to me a little bit about that, because is it to do with the artist not dying out and not being replaced by a machine? I want to fully understand what you mean by that.
So what I mean by that is that, with this new industrialized world, there's a process where a lot of things are made by machines. So even like pattern cutting, and then, cutting out all the different pieces. They do something called a cookie cutter. So very heavy machine. It's almost like when you have those things creating like Christmas cookies. So it's the same. Yes. They create those metal pieces for the patterns. And there is this one big machine that can cut for like 100 bags in one go.
Oh,
and
wow.
So yeah, so then, or even 1,000. So then there's less and less people involved. Whereas in our process, because we create such limited amounts, there is actually a human that's, cutting every single piece and then stitching all of that together. We work with a family company that's third generation's handbag makers. And it's a family business. And so we talk to them, we know them, and we're seeing things developed, and there's like human energy at the forefront, as opposed to, 10,000 pieces being made, and it's industrialized, and there's not that one person that's taking care of everything. And I remember when I would go to university 20 years ago, you'd go to Paris and you'd go to a certain store, you go to Spain, there'd be the Louis store, and Louis Vuitton here had something. And today you have these, brands, luxury brands that used to be niche luxury, having like 1,000 points of sale, being in every city. So whilst they're designer brands, they're mass produced. And so, and that's complicated for small brands, because when you have these niche luxury brands that go into volume and create 10,000 units in the same style and same color, and then you want to come and say, I want to make 50 bags, you have a very different price point for that production. And one of the questions we always get asked is that, why are your prices quite high? Because we pay a lot of money for that sort of artisanal craftsmanship that can go out. And so when I moved to London 3 years ago, the last handbag maker in London had to shut down, because everyone's turning into an industrialized process, which is really sad. So whilst the designer might not die out, craftsmanship will die out and people will lose jobs.
That's really sad. You kind of touched on this, but obviously what you're doing is beyond inspiring, but you said it's not really focusing on profit. How do you make the business sustainable without focusing on profitability?
So obviously, personally, I have very low overheads, and I've structured my business that way, kind of like an Uber system where I do most of it myself, and I get in consultants when I need to. But unfortunately, it's now, for example, if we'd like to fundraise, because, now we have this brand, we have Dr. Carmen's amazing invention, we're in Selfridges, but we like to create awareness around this product. And for you to do that, like on social media, you have to pay influencers, and, everything costs a lot of money. And when you want to fundraise, then it turns into a business. And those people want to see this major expansion plan. They want to see you wanting to be in 100 stores or 500 stores. And when you don't want to be that, you're no longer an attractive business to be invested in. So unfortunately, I'm still self-funding. So I have the power of, not going to major distribution. But now we do want to get funding, and I somehow have to find an investor that's also interested in impact and doesn't want to be in 1,000 stores, and understand what we're trying to do, and kind of push forward a different type of mindset and bring back niche luxury where you're not creating a handbag that everybody has.
Yeah.
So
And
this is where,
I mean, that's a challenge. That's a big challenge because you're turning business on its head. But I think Dr. Carmen was mentioning that education is the key for that, is to educate. So people know that there's a reason why you don't want to be in 10,000 stores and you don't want to have your product on every shelf and all over the world. And that has to do with basically creating our earth to have some more sustainability, for want of a better word.
I heard a new concept being coined called conscious capitalism. I heard it for the first time yesterday, which is obviously I'm running a business, so I have to make profit, but at the same time, it's about conscious capitalism where you say, okay, I'm happy with this and I don't need more than this.
That's a hard thing to find. Have you found your limit of, I'm good now, I don't need anything more than that?
I mean, I found my own limits, when I had my other business, because I could grow organically with the new product. And I think Dr. Carmen can agree, we need to educate people. We need to educate people on that other synthetic vegan leather is in fact plastic. It's very, damaging for the environment whilst it's animal friendly. So currently today, in order to educate, I do need a bigger budget. So it depends now where my future investor is going to be happy.
For us at home, and maybe this is a question for both of you, how do we explore plant-based options? Obviously, not everyone has access to your beautiful brand. What can we do in our everyday lives to help forward this agenda?
Dr. Carmen, would you like to answer?
Yes, I think what Amanda is saying is that she's at the luxury winning at the top end, right? And the reasons being mainly as well is the price, okay, craftsmanship, all this cost a lot of money. But if you Google, going back to social media, if you go into plant-based materials, there are other plant-based materials there. There are different price points because again, I think the price of the material is the same, but again, it's really a big difference how you make it. It's made in pretty much, sorry, this is a little bit of a bracket in there, but we choose also our clients. I mean, we try to work with people that they do have something related to our philosophy. It's either even big brands, they're trying to be more transparent, they're trying to be more socially aware. So they may be all with something that they really know the factory, they really try to use environmental materials. For example, instead of using, plastic, they might use, natural rubber, etc., to make shoes. But I think the price is many times related. Again, where do you make it? There's a lot of our clients that they do things in Portugal that are quite well made, but they're really made in volume, obviously, and the price point goes down. So there is really a huge amount of variety that you can really check in plant-based materials products.
What are some of the big brands that we could maybe look into that are doing this, or that we can trust are actually doing it?
Sorry, somehow I missed the beginning of your question.
Oh, it's okay. I said, what are some of the big brands that we can trust are actually taking a step in the direction of regenerative or sustainability?
And we worked with people like Nike, with big brands like Nike, right? And they're not perfect, it's huge. They're all over the world.
Yeah.
Millions upon millions of products. But nevertheless, they are really trying. And I think, a couple of years ago, I was quite cynical about, I went to demonstrations against Nike at the time. And I think today, you hear about things. It's really hard for big companies to really become as transparent and as clear as what Amanda is saying, because they're huge, right? And they really have a lot of, I mean, their supply chain is extremely complex. They're really, very complex, basically systems as well. But they're trying. And if we do things, for example, with them, we did a few launches, and it is because at that particular product they're looking for traceable, transparent materials. For example, again talking about rubber, which is kind of sustainable, meaning coming from places that it hasn't been chemically transformed, etc. Cotton, which really they know where it comes from. So they're trying. They cannot change everything, but they're really trying. And the way in a way, they help us to really get the volume that, again, that you need to upscale all this, because, if we want to keep helping our communities and our partners, we need volume as well. But at the same time, it helps them as well to really start on the path of sustainability, responsibility, etc. So it is a little bit symbiotic. It helps both ways, and we just have to be in this give and take as well,
Yeah, and we have to do our homework to see who's doing this.
Absolutely important. Absolutely very important. Yeah.
I was wondering, Amanda, if you could speak to how Iranian women as entrepreneurs could network better. This is one of the questions we received that people want to know about. People often wonder, are women helpful to each other or not helpful? You seem to be very community-based. How can we network better as Iranian entrepreneurs?
I mean, I think a little bit like me being Iranian, that we have this very complex culture of we love Iranians, we hate Iranians, we want to support them, but we're very suspicious of each other. And it's every time, like, my parents, they love to help Iranian refugees. It's always about, so proud of being Iranians. And every time I'm like, somewhere it's like, oh, let's, what is going on? And I don't know. I feel like for me, I would like for us Iranians to be a little bit more trusting of each other. There's something in our culture that makes us be suspicious of each other. And I think we're brought up with this notion somehow. And for me, I'm very open. I mean, we have people like Tahir June from Persia Educate. I've been put in touch with her from Dori June, and they're all wonderful people. They've really been helpful. So I think it's starting. And I've met a lot of Iranians here of the new generation that really want to help each other. And I have this space here, and I'm very happy to host networking events for other Iranians here. And I know that Tahir would like to do that. So hopefully moving forward, we can use this space as a networking place and have you with us online. And let's get together.
I'll come there. I'll come there. I just need an excuse to get to London from LA. I love it over there. I really do. But that's beautiful. We really are kind of suspicious of each other. And I agree with you. And again, I admire your honesty for saying, hey, this is something I've seen, and let's change that, and let's do it a little different. That is all over your ethos, all over your product. It's all over who you are. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that fuels your progress, is that honesty. So let's all take some of that away. Yeah. And same with Dr. Carmen. I mean, you're like, no, my heart says this. I need to figure it out. And to take 12 years to do something like that, I don't know many people that would take 12 years and really stick with something. That really tells me that your entire heart and your soul was driven to do this. And thank you for that, because so many generations to come will also be thanking you. And that is such a beautiful thing. I think everyone will agree with me in that we have so many more things we'd love to ask you, but we're kind of out of time. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to have spoken with both of you, and I'm so inspired. I kind of want to take some time out today to rethink my own life and see, what do I want to do, and how do I want to do it, and what does my heart want? What am I willing to spend 12 years of my life on? I'm really inspired. So thank you for that. If there's anything else, final comments you want to make, I will take those from either of you.
I think we're all here. Sorry, Amanda.
Oh, no, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
I just want to say we're here, as you actually quite rightly said, to help each other, to inspire, particularly the young generations. I think to me it's absolutely critical, you know. And I make a point in doing this kind of thing, in doing these master classes, etc., just to make sure that as you know, we've got a few years ahead of all this young generation, that they're really having a tough time. I mean, the world is a difficult place to be, and there is no doubt about it. And they feel responsible, which is a good thing as well. They really feel that they have the world on their shoulders. And I can hear that from people in their young generation, in their 20s. So I think what we really need to do is to make sure that we do our best, whichever way we can, by these kind of conversations. Lifting education, to me, bring a lot more creative thinking to say the what if, you can do it. Let's see, let's look at nature, let's bring respect for each other as well. We all have something to give, and I think it's really an important thing. Gender balance is absolutely critical as well. So this is, I mean, we're here all women, and I think it's really important to really bring this awareness and the power that we can have, and the humanity that we can have, and the empathy that we can have out into the world. This is really all.
Thank you. Amanda.
Yeah, you know, first of all, I'd like to, as a final note, thank Dr. Carmen for her great, you know, invention, perseverance, resilience, and everything. And then finally, I'd like to say to any, you know, aspiring entrepreneur out there is to, I think, just to go for it. Nothing is ever perfect. And I think, you know, some people want things to be perfect, and that paralyzes them. It's just like, just get on with it. You'll work things out, and then make sure to ask for help. I mean, and also sometimes when you ask, you shall receive. And we have to ask our peers, our friends, our family for help, and just start acting as a collective and community. I have a boutique here, and I've asked my neighbors for help. They've all been so helpful. And I really feel that the more I ask for things, the more yes I receive. So I'd like to say that, you know, anyone can do it, and it's just about believing in yourself. Start small, grow organic, and just follow your dreams and follow your heart, like Dr. Carmen said.
I love that. Thank you. Yes, I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been delightful.
And thank you so much for moderating, and thank you for organizing this. Thank you, you know, everybody that's here, and it's been great. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's really early there in the morning.
It's like 10 o'clock, and my dog is going nuts now. He's like taking for a walk. I'm sorry if you hear him barking.
Well, I should rejoin at this point, and really thank you know, our presenters. I really want to thank the last words that dear Amanda shared, because it really is about creating community. And here at Persia, the reason why we do what we do is, of course, inspired by the spirit of building a community. And our founder, Mr. Ansari, had that vision back in 1997, when some of the ideas that we're talking about here today were not necessarily popular. And he was amazing enough to realize that the way to create community really is through education. So we are delighted that we have this space, thanks to him, thanks to his family for creating Persia Educational Foundation, to be able to offer educational experiences and spaces to all Iranian descent individuals around the planet. I also wanted to take this opportunity in the spirit of community building that dear Amanda and Dr. Carmen have started, and Raha so beautifully facilitated this afternoon. I want to thank one of our trustees, Dori Donahiri, who Amanda Jun briefly mentioned. Dori is one of the powerhouses in the Iranian community, and we're fortunate to have her as a trustee. She was the person that put us in touch with Amanda and Dr. Carmen and suggested that we would conduct this particular webinar. So we're very, very grateful that we were able to have everyone this afternoon. I'm incredibly grateful that you were able to take the time to be with us today. And I want to encourage everyone in whatever space we're in to please take the pioneering spirit that Dr. Carmen and Amanda have shared with us today. Create regenerative patterns of community building through whatever passion we have, and to be mindful of the younger generation who so very desperately need a better world to live in, and to engage wholeheartedly in education, in innovation. And if there is anything that can be done and can be supported by Persia, please contact us as well. Just as dear Amanda offered, Carmen, Raha, we're all here together. It is through collaboration and education that we create this circle of trust that really community is built on. So thank you for joining us. We're delighted to have you today. Our next webinar will be on 6th of July and will be focused on law. So 3 bright Iranians will be speaking about the latest trends in the world of law, and we would love to be able to have you here with us. You may register on our site. You may just join live. You may do whatever you feel comfortable with. And please support us with our scholarship programs that actually enable younger Iranians to complete their education in a more comfortable manner, so that they can serve the Iranian community and the global community at once. Thank you for being part of this space with Persia, and see you soon.